Welcome Pisces to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 20th of May for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now is the event chart right at the start of the week, and this gives us a lot of important information. Not least, your two ruling planets of traditional Jupiter and Neptune are collaborating still. They were brilliantly as last week came to a close. Now Jupiter is about growth and through its rulership of your sign, faith, and Neptune's about dreams, but it can be about compassion. But for you, Jupiter may be, as this week begins, in the sign of Taurus, but it's actually been here for just over 1 year. And as last week drew to a close, the brilliance of the sun, the radiance of the sun applied itself to Jupiter, so we had a cazimi. But that's only happened once, because when Jupiter moved into Taurus a year ago on the 13th of May, the sun had already passed that point. So this connection suggests over the next year that your ideas or your mode of expression, however you choose, it could be through music, self-expression, it could be through art, it could be as a writer, it could be through the physical things you do, your imagination and sensitivity, but also ability to draw energy in a more sensory way. Neptune can be extremely influential in how people relate to you. So in other words, you still have the power of Jupiter for 1 more year in your sector of everyday communications. Further, Mercury, the planet which governs the 3rd house, moved into that area last Wednesday. Now, as you know, it did clash with Pluto. It's possible that from then through to the end of the week, maybe Saturday, that something came up from your past, maybe in your own thinking. Maybe it was a very deeply rooted old historical issue that had some pain linked to it. Or maybe someone made an observation about how you interact, which actually was a little jarring. Maybe they raised a grievance that you weren't expecting. But what you can do, because of the emollient energies of Venus in its home sign of Taurus, which is so close to Jupiter and the Sun, is accept this has happened, but be determined to take this wonderful opportunity to think and to grow in terms of your personal expression into the next stage of the year's development, because it is going to be an incredibly powerful week. But also, as you begin this week, Mars and the point of destiny are in a tight conjunction in your 2nd house. If you're more engaged on a financial issue that you're needing to talk about, you could feel a bit feisty, particularly because Mars is in an opposition with the Moon. If you're talking about shared finances, or you're talking to a lender or a source of finance, if someone doesn't quite get where you're coming from, you could feel quite impatient. Just bear that in mind. But charm really will win the day, to be honest. But then on Tuesday, the sun switches into house 4. Very much to do with our environment, where we live, how we live there. But also the 4th house is our connection to our inner world. It's our inner safety and stability and security. And the sun immediately links with Pluto. Now, if you recall, Pluto forged that discordant right angle with Mercury. But here, Pluto can be of great benefit to you because it's pushing you, and it will push you when it comes back into Aquarius from the 20th of November, once it leaves to retreat back into Capricorn for one final time at the start of September. It's going to push you over the next few years through to 2044 to really grow your understanding of the psychological domain. But that's interesting because Pisces people usually have an incredible capacity for that area. You do as a giver. You know, your capacity to help people who are less fortunate in a very selfless way is the stuff of astrological legend. But I feel that Pluto, because it's in Aquarius, will bring a more detached understanding of your own emotional dimension, your own inner world. That's the area that's really going to grow. And this connection to the sun, which occurs immediately this week on Tuesday through to the end of the week, then as Venus moves on Thursday, and then as Jupiter, your ruler, moves on Saturday, all of these can be triggers for huge growth, because it's the start really of a completely new era for you. Now there is a full moon which occurs on Thursday in Sagittarius, but that's actually very much supported by Pluto. And even again, if your feelings are quite close to the surface about some quite personal issues, there may be something that actually comes to pass which really pleases you, to do with the home, or to do with the family, or to do with your inner evolution. And it can be very powerful. I feel that full moons sometimes are romanticized. You know, you get people who share memes, particularly on Facebook, and essentially they say the same thing for whatever, whether it's a new moon or a full moon. New moon, okay, set your intentions. Full moon, you're going to receive all. But actually, the moon and the sun are in conflict on a full moon. So often full moons can be very challenging. That's when we have the most amount of road accidents, or when we have the most amount of admissions to hospitals, or when people, you know, violent crime tends to increase at the time of a full moon. So full moons aren't necessarily very easy, but I feel this full moon will work for you splendidly if you're up for it. Because what's really shifting here, Pisces, is because you're a very emotional, watery sign, sometimes to protect yourself, you almost like embrace the power of your opposite sign of Virgo and cold out. I've used this analogy before. You're almost like the trout at the bottom of the lovely crisp pool, say somewhere in the countryside, with your eye looking at the fisherman who's trying to get you out of the water, but you're far too crafty because you're staying just out of sight or depth, but you're observing coolly, detachedly. So I think there is a little bit of a dichotomy in your nature. I think you can be all in to the nth degree, but you can also be all out. And I feel that what this new phase is asking you to do is to use all the extra communication that's been going on recently to start now working on evolving your emotional world in a more communicative way through the host Gemini, which of course is about quick communications. Let's be honest about it. The moon, particularly in Gemini, is a bit cool itself. It's a mutable sign like yours, but you have the emotion. Gemini doesn't, it has the air. But I think the air can be good for you. It can help you to think about where you live, how you live there, who with, your emotional interactions, and in a way that can really grow and evolve quite considerably. Now, if you're quite settled in your life, I think Venus and Jupiter suggest you could start working from home if you're not already doing it, or starting a business afresh from the comfort of your abode, or relocating, downsizing, upsizing. You may have someone come in home, leaving home. There may also be some redecoration or some changes to your garden space at this time, because what you can do with all these magnificent energies this week is really start to manifest a hub that works for you, that gives you a real sense of peace and tranquility. But the conversations and the ideas that have been generated recently, maybe even some of the ones that have been a bit challenging, and now you can convert all of that into a pause and take a breath. But there can be something that really evolves in this arena. Maybe, for example, even getting closer to someone else. If you're older and you think that relating or a relationship is not really what you want now, you prefer to have, you know, the control of your life, your agency, which is totally understandable. What Venus and Jupiter can do is to try and melt some of your resistance to why you want to be very protected. So there could be some lessons to learn about your emotional outlook, your emotional reactions and interactions, and Pluto is going to be a massive part of helping you to learn much more deeply what really makes you tick. It's been a pleasure being with you, Pisces. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great week, And if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now.